All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, a slightly more structured edition of Unqualified Analysis this week. Not a whole lot of topics to get to. I figure we're still several weeks out from the draft, I want to say. I want to say it's in early May. I have to look that up. I meant to look that up before I started here, but your boy forgot. Long days, am I right? Anyways, so we've got a couple headlines to get to today. One that really fired me up, and I may go on for quite some time with. So, we got some sad stuff. Some really sad stuff. I won't spend a whole lot of time on that, I assure you. And just a couple headlines for me to bloviate about. That's kind of what we're looking at here today. That being said, should be a pretty standard off-season episode. So, anyways, I'm your host, Caleb. You can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. That will be down in the description. You can shoot me an email over at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. Been a really long time since I checked that email. Probably been about a month since we ascertained that someone has stolen that email for food stamps purposes. Was not me. What was not me. I did not sign up for any food stamp programs. I am not defrauding the state. So, hope they figured that out. Haven't checked the email. Chances are probably not. It is what it is. It simply is what it is on that front. Outside of that, though, go ahead, subscribe wherever you listen to this. Let's get right into this thing, shall we? So, starting off, I had a different first headline, but that's going to be bumped to the second headline because, it'd be weird if we didn't hit the uncomfortable one right off the top here. So, I'm just going to take the Band-Aid off here. So, Kyren Lacy, he was in a chase with police officers over the weekend and apparently ended his own life. Really sad stuff. You may remember, I think actually came out on my birthday on the 28th, February. So, a month and some change ago, Kyren Lacy got popped for negligent homicide in a crash that he allegedly caused. Read the details of that. Not fantastic, especially if they got his license plate on camera. He's kind of dead to rights on that one. No pun intended, obviously. Insensitive stuff from me. I didn't mean to do that. Anyways, we'll just keep on moving from there. So no idea what the police chase was about this time. It just seems it ended with him taking his life tragically. And there's really not much else to say on that. Just it should really just serve as a warning against reckless driving. I hope that, I don't want to make this too much about problems in other organizations because it's a really sad story in and of itself, but I hope that Kirby Smart showed this story and made this story very well known to his team because not too long ago, very similar situation happened with this, and allegedly, what's his name? Jalen Carter, now with the Philadelphia Eagles, ended up getting off on that, mostly scot-free. So it wasn't too long ago that we had that situation, though. It was a Georgia player driving that car. Go look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. Another tragic situation there where a staffer died. Also a player on the football team died for Georgia. And, obviously you let the due process play out, but it's just a sad situation here on this one. There's really not much else to say. Just, taking your life, one, is never the answer, especially when you are that young. Even on a negligent homicide thing, he would have pleaded that down and gotten out of prison at some point. He would have gone to prison for a long time, don't get me wrong, but it's not a life ender. Certainly a life ruiner, given the track of the life that he was having at the moment before this all happened. But it wouldn't have been a life ender. This never the answer. Don't take your own life. It's just it hurts the people around you more than you could possibly imagine. So if there's any one thing that we take away from this, it is that. And we'll move on from that situation. Not really the type of subject matter I like to hit on. I like to sink my teeth into stuff that's more mentally stimulating, I suppose. This is just sad. This is just sad. So I had to hit that up top, but we'll keep it moving from there. Rest in peace to Kyren Lacy, and let this be a warning to really just all football players. Because, listen, man, I've been at a D1 university. You see the nice cars going around town super fast, and you just kind of know intuitively that's a football player. So, just saying, this should be a warning to everyone out there, not just the Georgia football program, because it's not just a problem for the Georgia football program. It's just more pronounced with Georgia football. Just, hey, something to keep in mind. But we keep it moving from there. Outside of that, one big one that came across the timeline, and I'm sure you guys, if you've been following the news here recently in college football, know exactly where I am going with this. So it takes a little bit of explaining to kind of get the full picture of the situation, but going back to right before the playoffs for Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava reportedly kind of, used some contract leverage, threatened to hold out of a playoff game that they ultimately lost to Ohio State. That was all going on in the intermediary time between the end of the regular season and the beginning of the playoffs. So that was already on record. Ultimately, Tennessee averted the crisis. Didn't matter. They still got their asses kicked. Unfortunately, they didn't have Jeremiah Smith, and the other side did, and unfortunately, nothing you can do about that defensively. And offensively, Let's call it what it is. Nico Iamaleava was not ready for the moment. He wasn't ready for the moment the entire year last year. But there was that contract situation brewing beforehand. Fast forward to spring practice now, obviously dormant in the early transfer portal window, but there were rumors that he was going to go into the early transfer portal window, stemming from that, the playoff situation. But being in the playoffs, pretty terrible look to have your starting quarterback opting out in going into the transfer portal, and I'm not sure the schools that he would want him in that situation, if that makes sense. Used a lot of want, but it all ultimately ended up where I was trying to go. So you fast forward to spring practice now. There's word coming down the pipe that Nico Iamaleava practiced all the way up until the spring game, seemed to have every intention of playing in the spring game. No shows the team dinner couple days before the spring game actually happens. Comes out that the agents are in contract talks, NIL contract talks, trying to go from $2.5 million in the upcoming season in NIL money to $4 million in the upcoming season in NIL money. We'll leave that where it is for now until we get out the full length of the story, but trust me, we will revisit that one particular fact because it fires me up. It really does fire me up, but put a pin in it for now. Obviously, Tennessee, after seeing what they saw last year, and we'll get into it more in just a second, don't you worry, they hold fast. They say, nope, you're not going to hold us over the barrel here. If you don't want to be a part of the team, go right ahead, but your representation is not going to extort us for an extra 1.5 this year, just because he wouldn't play in the spring game and ultimately would transfer. No, Nico's done this many times, and again, it's not necessarily Nico. I say again, like I said this before, but it's not Nico necessarily. It's the representation. I told y'all, this is a headline I want to be able to sink my teeth into here, so buckle in. Ultimately, comes down the pipe. Obviously, Tennessee is not going to match that contract. Nico sits out of the spring game. Really comes out like right before the spring game, like, okay, contract talks didn't work out. Nico's going to enter the transfer portal. So Nico Iamaleava has entered the spring transfer portal, and he's got some suitors out there. Originally, I'd heard some whispers that there was a particularly motivated Texas Tech donor. Unsubstantiated. I didn't get that from any sort of credible source, just me and my buddies shooting the shit mostly. But that doesn't happen, doesn't seem to materialize. Now, the whispers are that Bill Belichick and North Carolina seem to be the leaders in the clubhouse, but obviously Nico has not picked a destination as of yet. We'll see exactly how that works out if he goes to North Carolina. I don't necessarily love everything that Bill Belichick is doing there, and different story for a different day, but I don't know if y'all saw how involved his 23, 24, what is she, 27, I think, younger than me, girlfriend, on the sidelines at the spring game, getting Bill Belichick's ear at the spring game. I don't know if y'all heard this before, but any sort of social media types of emails where Bill Belichick is looped in, he's asking that they loop in his girlfriend now too. That whole situation makes me very uncomfortable, and the more this goes on, the more this kind of progresses in spring, the more I think that that's going to blow up spectacularly. Interesting situation, but not what we're talking about right now. Nico is in the portal. I truly do not care where he goes at this point. Technically, he can't transfer in the SEC, but who's going to enforce that if he does transfer? And I say he can't transfer. He can. He would just have to sit out next season by the bylaws of the SEC. Now, the SEC may try to enforce that. We would see how that would work out. I don't know exactly what would happen there, but we'd have to wait and see. Now, again, though, I don't really care where Nico goes in the portal, and here's why. I guess we'll start here first because it's the very base thing that I think a lot of people latched onto. So might as well hit that up top and get it right out of the way. The unmitigated gall of, I'm sure part of it is Nico. I would say 90% of it is his representation with which buddy. We're going to talk about them in just a second. Don't you worry one bit. The unmitigated gall after the season that Nico Iamaleava had. And you look at it on the surface. Only 19 touchdown passes. And you can come back and say, oh, he threw 5 interceptions to those 19 touchdown passes. That's all well and good. Very, very efficient stuff right there. You peel back the layers a little bit. So there's 8 SEC games, right? 8 SEC games per year in conference play for Tennessee. So of those 8 games in the SEC, or in those 8 games in the SEC, Nico Iamaleava accounted for a total of 9 touchdowns. Now, you can include rushing, throwing, doesn't matter because he didn't really rush for any touchdowns last year until the game against against Ohio State, and by then it did not matter. So, just passing touchdowns, 9 passing touchdowns in 8 SEC games, which by itself, okay, it's his first year starting. You can cut him a little bit of slack, but one, wasn't putting up good yardage in those games and was not showing good accuracy in those games. 2, if you look a little bit deeper at those 9 touchdowns, 6 of them came against Vanderbilt, which, all due respect to Vanderbilt, the only reason that they aren't the worst team in the SEC is because Mississippi State and Kentucky exist. It's no shade to Vandy necessarily. They know who they are. And last year, they had a fantastic year by their own standards. Now, those standards are not normal SEC standards, I will say. And that's why, you're talking about 2 of the bottom 3 teams in the SEC this last season. And I don't think he fared particularly well against Kentucky either, if I remember correctly. So 6 touchdowns of those 9 that he threw in the SEC were against Vandy and Mississippi State. And by the way, only threw 2 touchdowns against an all-time bad Mississippi State defense. The worst Mississippi State team overall in probably the last 20 years. That's kind of how long it's been since Mississippi State was 2-10, basically. They haven't even really sniffed as bad as they were last year. So that should tell you a little bit about Nico Iamaleava's distribution. And then he threw 10 touchdown passes against bumfuck State. All due respect to Kent, you know who you are. I understand. Against not very good talent, though, he put up big-time numbers, goes into the SEC, does not have that at all. Not even remotely close. So after that season, and to get absolutely run off the field in the playoff game, and to still ask for, the unmitigated gall to ask for an extra 1.5 when you are making $2.5 million after that season last year is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And there's no justifying it either. You can see all these fake players' rights people. They're really just money's rights people talking about, hey, this guy, he deserves to get as much as he can be paid. And you know what? I agree with that to a certain extent. He doesn't deserve it, though. And I know deserve and market price are different things. Obviously, someone was willing to pay Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed. Shout out to you, Jimmy Haslam. But just because someone's willing to pay it does not mean that he deserves that money. And Tennessee rightly identified, no, this kid is not worth an extra 1.5. He would have to have at least an above average season to get a raise, wouldn't he? He did not even have an above average season. I would say he had an average at best season last year, below average at many times last year. He was not very good. He had a disappointing season last year. I don't know if people forget, but he had preseason hype for the Heisman last season, going into that Josh Heupel offense with former number 1 overall QB, not a whole lot of exposure to him. He goes out and puts on that performance last year, and then he says he wants another $1.5 million. Are you kidding me? I mean, kudos to Tennessee for not bowing and caving, because this is not the first time that Nico's people has done this before. And you know what? There's that aspect of it, and I think a lot of people latched onto it, and I think rightly so. I think where people are getting messed up is they're putting too much of this on Nico Iamaleava, and obviously Nico is not blameless in this whole thing. Nico is not some innocent bystander in this. No, he was an active participant. Let's not get this thing twisted. Nico put himself in this situation to a certain extent. That being said, I would say the number 1 and most prevalent driver of why this situation came about is one of the biggest endemic problems in the sport of not even college football, just college athletics at this point in this Wild West NIL era that we found ourselves, is that there is no certification system for agents, and as a result, these guys are just money-hungry fiends. They don't give one shit about the players they're representing. They're charging them an arm and a leg in fees, essentially. I mean, they're charging like 10, 20% fees. When agents at the next level, they're getting like maybe 5%. And 5% is a steep agent fee. I'll just say that. I think Drew Rosenhaus takes something like, it's probably like 2 to 3% for like elite players, and then it kind of bumps up closer to 5 for the non-elite players. The guys with less bargaining power. That's kind of how the business works. But that's a reasonable rate for an agent who you would assume has a bunch of different clients. These absolute blood-sucking leeches in college football don't give half a shit about these kids. They don't give half a shit about their families. And the sad part is that a lot of these families are complicit in taking advantage of their kid and milking them for as much money as they're worth. And the ironic thing is, if you just trust that you raise the kid right, support him in any way that you can, and put him in the best position to succeed and go to that next level that I'm sure that Nico Iamaleava's family, and they are far from innocent in this situation if rumors are to be believed, if you get them to the promised land, which is not a guarantee, sure, but if you put them in the best position to do so, ultimately down the line, you are going to be rewarded by that kid because you stuck beside him. And if he doesn't reward you, that's also a little bit on yourself for raising the kid like that as well. So it just comes down to, I don't think you trusted your job raising the kid in the first place. I think it's amazing. And I come from a place of privilege on this to where I was not around like uber ridiculous wealth, and quite frankly, ridiculous wealth makes me uncomfortable to be around at this point. Can't even lie on that. But I was around a certain amount of money. I was fortunate enough to have a solid upbringing and a nice home where I saw responsible money management taking place. These kids, and especially these parents, have never seen this type of money in their entire life. And in all likelihood, in a lot of these cases, are not going to see this type of money ever again from what they're getting in college. So, whereas you may see in some situations, parents supporting their kids and just being like, you know what, I'm just proud that he got to this point. I'm proud of whatever happens from here, and whatever money comes in, that's a blessing in and of itself, and he earned that. Instead of that mentality, in a lot of these cases, you're seeing this money come in, and they're like, I want a piece of that. I'm owed what was, I helped put in some hours. I helped, I brought him to practice. I was there while he was training. I deserve some compensation for that. And that's an insidious mentality that I think has crept in. It's been there since, time immemorial, ever since money has been changing hands, and it's been changing hands under the table. And don't let anyone fool you. It's not been exchanging. It's not been changing hands the way it has been over the last several years at this point in college athletics with the advent of the NIL era. But everyone and their mother knows that money was changing hands before the NIL era. And ever since there has been money changing hands for recruits, there has been sycophantic, blood-sucking relatives who are there to siphon off cash from their beloved son or daughter or whoever it may happen to be to go to this location. I mean, the debate on the situation, but that's pretty much exactly what happened with Cam Newton. It was either uncle or dad, I can't remember which one, was cutting deals with teams. Mississippi State didn't quote-unquote shake his hand enough. That was an A.J. Brown quote. Shout out to you, Hugh Freeze, you piece of shit. But still, same sort of thing where Cam Newton went to the highest bidder. Auburn, kicked him a six-figure payment to get him there. If allegations are to be believed, which if you don't at this point, I mean, hello, you're an Auburn fan, I suppose. But this has always been a factor. You're seeing it come in much more now that the money is getting bigger and it is changing hands publicly in a way that is not at all hush-hush in the way that it used to be. You're seeing the ugliness of some of these family dynamics. I think my ear may be bleeding. I scratched it one too many times. It'll clot up. It's not that big of a deal. These things happen. These things happen. I'll stop the recording if it gets bad enough. That being said, where was I? Where was I? Sorry, I had to check. Had to check there for a second. Yeah, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, these agents, in many cases, these family members, they can pay lip service all they want. They care more about their own pocketbooks than they do about this sport, and you are seeing the results. I would say the lack of structure is as much to, and by the way, we're going to talk about that lack of structure here in a second. It is as much to blame for this this catastrophe we find ourselves in. And just because college football is bringing in money does not mean there's a catastrophe brewing, because I'm looking at it right now and college football is broken. Absolutely broken. You have self-interest at all levels, zero leadership at all, and people that with bad motivations and bad intentions just running wild because there's no one there to stop them. And that is exactly what is happening in this agent situation. They don't care about any of these kids. They want to milk them for all they're worth and then say, see ya, go on to the NFL. By the way, we probably signed you, snuck a little clause in your contract because poor families coming from poor neighborhoods, they can't afford to have a lawyer look over a contract before they sign it. So they sign something and, oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay us 10% of your earnings going forward when you get to the pros for however long your career happens to be. So there's probably those as well, but they'll kick them to the curb. They don't give a shit about him, and they'll churn another one right up in there as a true freshman coming in, who they'll probably make transfer 4 or 5 times, however many years of eligibility that they get, just to basically ruin their college experience and line their pocketbooks. And the cycle will just keep going and going and going until we put guardrails in place to kind of have a uniform structure for the agents, the certification of those agents, and who we are allowing to represent kids in a college football setting. Because right now we have a bunch of financial predators running college football and the player movement. I would say anywhere from 50 to 60%. You can kind of argue on both sides which the structure or this greedy, money-hungry bullshit and the lack of structure around agents really just comes down to lack of structure. You can argue between those two, but they're as much a factor. There's not a whole lot of edge one way or another for why we are in this situation of player movement. Get these scumbag thieves, absolute thieves, don't care, you can at me, out of my sport that I love. That's what I want. We need a centralized commission in college football. We need a commissioner, and we need ground rules in place. Otherwise, this sport will continue to deteriorate and deteriorate and deteriorate until it's something that even I no longer want to watch because it is a shell of what it once was. If you want to avoid that, we got to put guidelines in place. And on that front, at this point, I mean, it's such a broken situation. We're probably just waiting on that House settlement to get finalized. There's probably going to be provisions in that House settlement. Obviously, you already know about the revenue sharing. That's coming from this. Outside of that, I would assume there are going to be some structural guidelines, a compensation structure that is going to incentivize players to stay longer at one school. I hope they have a structure for guardrails and authority, executive authority in the whole of college football. And do I know what that'll look like? No, it's probably going to have to be a pretty unique sort of structure from the NFL game, just because there's so many more teams, there's so much more politics involved, there's so much more granular stuff that you have to be aware of, which is why having conference commissioners has been ideal. But unfortunately, those conference commissioners, listen, this is a story for college football. It's a story for every industry in the land. If you want unfettered, just lawless wasteland, no regulations whatsoever on your industries, this is what you're going to get. It might not look like this necessarily. It's going to look like some version of this in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's not the player movement. Maybe it's the price of goods. Maybe it's labor abuses and whatnot. Something like this that you loved at one point, you thought was working all right, but needed some tweaks. You take off all the guardrails, and all of a sudden it becomes unrecognizable and disgusting to look at. This is a good lesson for all industries. You need some sort of guardrails. You need some sort of regulation. Otherwise, it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket. And when people don't have a set of rules to follow, listen, I have long since abandoned the idea that the average human being is just a virtuous, loving, always going to do the right thing person, regardless of the circumstances they're put in. No, we are humans. We fall victim to temptation all the time. I would even say we fall victim to temptation more often than not, which should tell you exactly the mindset of these conference commissioners. With no guardrails up, everyone is vying for power. And obviously the SEC and the Big Ten have come on top. If you don't know, after this playoff in 2025, the SEC and the Big Ten have unilateral control over the structure. And that's not an exaggeration either. It's codified in the agreement that they signed for the playoff to go to 12 teams. The SEC and the Big Ten control the structure from now on. It's been in the making for many years, but they finally got what they wanted. They run college football. Make no mistake about it. They run college football, and they're going to make rules that are advantageous to the SEC and the Big Ten for that playoff, and there's not shit anyone else can do about it unless they are willing to go out on a limb and not participate in the playoff. And at that point, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to tell you point blank, it's not going to work out for you. It's not going to work out for you. Unfortunately, in this unfettered environment, it's going to allow for two mega conferences in the SEC and the Big Ten to hold all the cards, all the power. And if you don't want to be a part of what we're doing, that's fine. You can just play in a second-tier conference. You already kind of are. I mean, if you want to pretend to yourself and pretend to your donors, pretend to your fans, all of that, that's, you're still a part of major college football, and, you want to convince them that you have a chance in the playoff, might as well stick around and keep going. Otherwise, hey, make your own playoff. Call it the Division I AA championship. That's essentially what it is at this point, because it's not the national championship. That's the power that the SEC holds over everyone right now. And yeah, it all comes back down to Nico Iamaleava. It's a symptom of the problem. The problems are manyfold, and we need some changes, man. We need some real changes. We need big changes, and we need leaders. That's what we need. We got a bunch of slimy snakes that are just weaseling their way into every nook and cranny to gobble up every cent that they can and extract as much value, only monetary, of course, value, out of the sport as they can. And as, business people, that would make sense. As administrators in a college setting, you should all be ashamed of yourselves. Absolutely ashamed of yourselves. And you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this. I hope the House settlement puts some guardrails in place to where we can finally have some normalcy in college football, because it's not been normal for a long time, and frankly, I'm getting tired. I am. I'm not going to stop watching it, but I'm getting tired of this shit, and I just want some form of resolution. Whatever form that may take, I want a resolution that puts us in a better place as a sport. We'll see if this ever comes down the pipe. It is government work, so it'll probably take for fucking ever. Much longer than you expect. It is what it is. Okay, well, I wrung all of the juice I could out of that one, and yeah, we'll just keep it moving from there. I got the juices flowing. I feel very passionately about that, and yeah, man, we just need changes. Anyways, let's shift the gears a little bit to a little bit more of a feel-good story here. So I watched approximately, call it 15 minutes of the Masters on Sunday. That was the only Masters I watched. I didn't even watch the Chris Vernon recap, what's going on at Augusta. I didn't watch that once. Probably the first time I haven't seen one of those videos in years. I just, for whatever reason, I had no desire to even follow the Masters this year. Sorry about it. It just didn't strike my fancy like it once has. As far as the event though, a pretty entertaining final day. I mean, very entertaining Masters overall. Ultimately, Rory has a roller coaster of a final round. He enters the day 4 shots up, I think it was, squanders the lead completely, has a chance to win it late if he just buries a putt. He would have won the Masters. He doesn't do that. Justin Rose ties him on the 18th hole. They go to a playoff hole, and Rory McIlroy was just nails. Absolutely nails on that playoff hole. I actually watched that playoff hole. So he hit Justin Rose hit a pretty good shot as an approach shot to kind of put him in position for a long birdie putt. Rory McIlroy, just beautiful shot. Played the slope on the green, hit it up high and let it roll right back down towards the cup. Had a manageable birdie putt. Justin Rose stood over his putt for, I don't know, approximately 4 hours. I was getting pissed off watching that shit. And this is why I can't watch golf, man, because I'm just too impatient. Justin Rose spent about, 55 minutes looking at that putt, reading the green, looking at the green book, standing over on the side, having a cigarette, sitting on the ground for a little bit, doing about 15 minutes of meditation, and then finally stands over the putt and fucking whiffs it. Like, dude, just putt the damn ball. Just putt the damn ball. Say what you will about me. I'm an awful golfer. One thing I will never do is spend 15 minutes over a goddamn putt, or 5, whatever it was. I don't care. It was entirely too goddamn long. I know you have your process, but don't stand over the fucking putt. Rory stepped right up there. It took about 30 seconds to look at it, sized it up. Granted, it was a shorter putt, but looked at it, sized it up, didn't overthink it, tapped it right in, wins the Masters. Justin Rose, improve yourself. That's all I got to say. Improve yourself. No matter how you feel about Rory McIlroy, though, that was a hell of a scene after he won that. I mean, he immediately broke down into tears, was incredibly emotional, more emotional than I've seen just about any golfer short of Bubba Watson. Known crier, Bubba Watson. He cries all the time. That's not something you really see from Rory McIlroy, though. He was emotional, and you can understand why if you know the story behind it. You know, maybe some football fans don't, but Rory McIlroy had a torrid start to his career. They called him the next Tiger. He won like 3 majors right out of the gate. He was 1 short, 4 majors, I think, even right out of the gate. He was 1 short of getting the career Grand Slam. He would be only, I think, like the 6th guy to do it. Outside of Tiger, it would be him and Tiger in the last like 40 years to do it, back when he was on the cusp of doing it. And then he sat there for 14 years. 1-4. I was in middle school. Actually, I think I was in high school the last time that he was, when he first got on the verge of winning that major. So much has happened in the last 14 years. And for 14 years later, and he's been really good over that course too. There were stretches, years-long stretches where he just wasn't on his A game. But over the last several years, really essentially since the PGA Live stuff started popping off, Rory McIlroy has been playing sensational golf. He's just not quite gotten to that point at the Masters to complete the career Grand Slam. He finally does it in this one 14 years later, and you just saw every bit of emotion pour out of him. And I don't know, regardless of how you feel about Rory McIlroy, I think he's kind of a jackass, just kind of the way he comports himself generally. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think bad guy and jackass, not necessarily mutually exclusive, or good guy and jackass, not necessarily mutually exclusive. You can be a good guy and still be a jackass. I've known many of those. I think Rory McIlroy probably falls in that category. So, I mean, just watching it from afar, not really having a vested interest, I mean, that was emotional stuff. I mean, the only thing that I would maybe put ahead of that as far as a Masters moment that I've seen in my life is Tiger winning that last Masters, whenever it was, 2018, I think it was, 2019, whenever he won that last Masters, and him just walking off and hugging his son, Charlie, whatever girl he was dating at that time. I don't know if they're dating anymore. Tiger Woods, he hasn't changed in the dating aspect, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, interesting times. But him walking off, embracing his son, having a moment with him, I think really knowing in his heart that that was going to be the last major that he won, arguably the greatest golfer of all time. Doesn't have the majors record, but finished, just short of Jack Nicklaus on that front. That's really the only Masters moment in my lifetime that tops this one from Rory McIlroy. And it wasn't just the emotion you saw pour out after the win. And that was special. That was beautiful. And I mean, it's something that he was, just gushing with emotion for probably, the entire walk back to the clubhouse as he was, shaking hands. I thought it was really cool as he was kind of walking towards the clubhouse before he got, kind of in between Augusta National members. There was like a 100-yard stretch where, he kind of left his family in the dust, but there were ushers there to help him out. He was walking by himself, no one around him, no one but the fans and the patrons. They're called the patrons at Augusta. My bad on that. No one but basically him and his thoughts. He was walking right down the fairway, as they say, right down the center of the aisle. And it was just him and his thoughts. And you could just see it it's cool to look at someone, not know exactly what's going through their head, because I don't think you can really imagine with what he's been through, the perseverance he had to have. The times where I'm sure he thought, I'm never going to complete this Grand Slam. It's been this long. It's just never going to happen. And for him to have that moment, you can just kind of see it hitting him, for lack of a better term. Obviously it hit him right away with all that emotion pouring out, but having that time alone for him to just kind of walk, there's no members of the club coming up to greet him. There's no family members coming up to hug him or anything. He's just walking with his thoughts, and you can just see the emotion on his face. That's a special moment, and that's something that you really only get at Augusta. It's why the Masters is great. Don't look too far into their politics or the way that they run things. As far as an event, they put on maybe the best event in sports, though. There's really no questioning that, and that's part of it. You really only get that atmosphere at the Masters when they don't allow phones in the Masters, by the way. You got to get a locker whenever you walk into Augusta National. You put your phone in there, and you're focused on the golf the whole day. It's actually kind of awesome in this era where everyone has a phone all the time and they're constantly looking at it no matter what the situation is. That's actually pretty awesome. I love that a lot. But the atmosphere, the crowd, him just kind of taking it all in, it was a beautiful moment. As a guy who's getting more into golf, I don't think I'll ever probably watch more golf outside of maybe trying to pick up swing tips if I get to that point. I think I got to focus on breaking 100 first, but yeah, that's a special moment. That's a really special moment, and happy I got to witness it live, because I almost didn't, because my ass was playing video games, because I do not care about golf all that much. I care about those moments, though, and that was a special one. That was a really special one. For him to exercise those demons in the way that he did, it wouldn't have felt the same if he just ran away with the Masters. If he just, blew everybody out, I'm sure that would feel good, but I don't think it feels nearly as sweet, or it would feel nearly as sweet as this win feels for Rory McIlroy, because it's the same stuff that plagued him all throughout his career. He almost gave up a lead. That's been Rory's thing. He's been known as a bit of a choker at times, where he's carried leads into the final round and he's just choked them away at certain times, and he almost did it in this one. But for him to fight through those issues, excuse me, for him to fight through those issues that he's experienced for his entire career, and for him to still get a win, and that one crowning win to kind of cap, I mean, his career is far from over, let's not get it twisted, but to kind of cap the journey that he's been on over the last 14 years, I mean, it's poetic. It's almost the way that it had to be for him to fight through all that adversity that is so common to him throughout the course of his career. For him to get to that point through those obstacles, it's a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment. Now, I'm not on that Rory McIlroy train that seemingly every middle-aged white man, I mean, really just every white dude that I knew was rooting for Rory for some reason. And I still can't really figure out why exactly. I don't know if it's some holdover from the PGA Live shit, or if I really don't get it, but every middle-aged white guy was rooting for Rory McIlroy to win, and I still have no idea why. No clue whatsoever, but it was a beautiful moment. So we'll leave it there. Outside of that, got a couple headlines here as we're heading out. One that we're going to touch on, then two that we'll just hit on real quickly. We'll hit the two quick ones and then head into our last topic of the day. So first and foremost, shout out to Patrick Peterson. He retired a Cardinal over the weekend, signed a one-day contract there, and officially retired. Next stop is the Hall of Fame. 8-time Pro Bowler, and I believe 13 seasons. Easy Hall of Famer. Shutdown corner for a good decade in his career. One of the best to ever do it. I mean, to start his career, he was sensational. One of the best cornerbacks in the league, the best cornerback in the league for a stretch of time there. Easy Hall of Famer. I don't know if he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm putting my stamp on it now, though. In the next decade, Patrick Peterson will be a Hall of Famer. And I don't think it'll take a decade for him to do it. Now, obviously, there's a 5-year wait time. In that following 5 years, I think he gets elected at some point in that time frame. So congratulations, Patrick Peterson, one-time Viking. We love you dearly for your time in Minnesota, and wish you nothing but the best in retirement, my man. I really appreciate everything you've done in your career. You were a fun player to watch, especially those punt return, man. Those punt returns, go back and watch them. Patrick Peterson was a demon as a punt returner, man. People forget it because he got older and couldn't be taking those hits anymore, focused solely on longevity as a corner. But early in his career, him and Dez Bryant, by the way, and you see Dez Bryant's frame and don't think he would be returning punts, go look up Dez Bryant and Patrick Peterson in the first couple years of their careers as punt returners. Insane burst on those guys. But great player, shoe-in Hall of Famer. It's just a matter of time. And another quick one off the bat here. So the Texans got out ahead of it again. They already did this with locking up Derek Stingley on the richest deal for a cornerback in NFL history. You may recall he had $1 million in incentives of like a $90 million contract. Hilarious shit on that front. Just didn't want to set the precedent of going full guarantees, I suppose. They did that last year with the Neil Hunter too, I believe. It's just weird quirk. I don't exactly get it. But they signed safety Jalen Petrie, standout, stud, very good player, well-deserving 3-year, $39 million extension. $29.1 million of that is guaranteed. So a lot of money in the bank for Jalen Petrie, and that's a good move. I like when teams kind of get out ahead of it with these players because the price is only going to get more expensive if you keep going from here. And with the current preferred structure for players on first contract extensions, they all want another bite at the apple that they all believe is coming no matter what. And some of those players will get injured, just the nature of the beast. And this structure of these basically 2-year deals with a 3rd-year option, that's really something that kind of benefits the teams as well, because they're not investing in long 5-year contracts that they can't get out of very easily. It's basically 2 years, and then you can cut bait after that. So I think it's a good deal for both sides. I think it's what both sides wanted, and it kind of sticks with the norm of what we've seen. Now, Jalen Petrie, if he lives up to the hype, he lives up to expectations, he'll either get a massive extension at the end of this, or he will go into free agency and get some money that way. But works out for everybody involved. Good business on the Houston Texans there. Nick Caserio making some questionable moves as far as the offensive line is concerned, but Not doing bad. Not doing bad whatsoever. Now, I'm going to get a swig of this Gatorade here real quick. Then we're going to talk about this last one. I don't know how long I'm going to go on this one, but there is a chance that I go for quite some time. So I do need to prepare before this. Give me just 1 second. I did not edge the Gatorade what's his name? Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards did not tease the lip of the Gatorade bottle like Anthony Edwards did in that one press conference. If you know, you know on that one. If not, I'm sure you can look it up based on the words that I just said there. Anyways, so one that I wanted to touch on because it's a little bit of an I told you so moment, a little bit of a selfish moment for me, and I apologize to my former co-host Zach. I'm about to talk bad about the team that you love in the New Orleans Saints here. So, Derek Carr, no fault of his own, not a very durable player, and once again that reared its ugly head. There's fear that he will miss the upcoming 2025 season. His season is in jeopardy with a shoulder injury. They're currently exploring surgical options, which if you're already exploring surgical options, put the hay in the barn. He is not playing. He's getting that surgery. We'll know probably what that surgery is whenever it gets there. They're pretty hush-hush on the injury, though, so I would imagine it's not something that is a short time frame, which is also evidenced by the fact that they're saying that the 2025 season is in jeopardy. So, good thing that they're not paying Derek Carr a whole lot this year. Otherwise, that'd be, oh, wait, they just pushed all of his salary cap to next season, so here's what Micky Loomis did, and I think you'll find this hilarious, especially if you're a Saints fan. Micky Loomis had the bright idea of just, once again, hey, it's worked out for him great in the past over these last couple of years. Why don't we just kick that cap can down the road one more time instead of leaning into the suck like this idiot Caleb over here told you to do when the offseason started? Why would I lean into the suck when I could just worry about that shit later? Kick that can right down the road. So they bumped a lot of Derek Carr's salary cap to hit the next year so that they could build the roster this year. You know, first year head coach, you want to put him in a position to succeed. Micky Loomis, very aggressive general manager. It's always worked out for him so far, right? Right? Well, in this situation, now you're looking at a quarterback, your starting quarterback, coming off of I don't know if it's a rotator cuff, if it's a labrum, whatever it is, coming off of a shoulder surgery, and you are going to have a cap hit on the books for him next year of $69 million, which I believe will be a record when they inevitably eat that. Now, they're not going to eat all of it at once. They're going to post June 1 him next year in all likelihood. But you're going to have to eat that, my friend. And I'm sure Micky Loomis is real glad that he kicked that can down the road now. And this is the danger of doing this, living on a prayer sort of strategy that Micky Loomis has done for years and years and years. He already got burned with the Michael Thomas situation with all those void years. They're probably still paying void years on his contract. They're taking the cap hits and that. Now they're going to be in the same situation with Derek Carr, and it's going to, continue to hamstring the team for building going forward. So now in year two, when, under this new coaching staff, assuming that you have some promise in year one, you're supposed to be gearing up, especially, we'll talk about this more in a second, but there's whispers there at the number 9 pick about it, a certain quarterback at Colorado. Going into year two, hoping for a young QB to take a leap in year two. And you hope to build around that young QB. Unfortunately, you have a 500-pound anchor on your feet in a $69 million cap hit, which, again, will be spread out between 2026 and 2027. But all that means is you're going to have the same sort of cap problem, maybe not quite as precipitous as it will be next year, for the next 2 years, at least. I just don't understand how Micky Loomis... he did not learn a damn thing from any of this situation that he got himself into last year. He still thinks that he can just kick the can right down the road until he finds a solution. You can't do it anymore, Mickey. You just can't do it anymore. And if you keep doing this, you're going to get fired. I know that you're in tight with Gail Benson. You've been the GM there for as long as I've been watching football, if I'm not mistaken. But at a certain point, you just got to part ways, and Micky Loomis is getting to that point because he has not learned one goddamn thing. And maybe it's a situation where it's like, I've done it this way for years and years and years. I'm going to ride this till the wheels fall off. And you know what? I respect that. I think it's stupid, but I respect that. I don't really know outside of that where you could see a logical line of thinking for Micky Loomis continuing to do this. It's just, he just does it because this is what he's always done for the longest time. And I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you right now, man, it's gonna ultimately get him fired. I'm guessing if it doesn't work this year, I'm guessing that the Saints move on from him, and maybe it'll take another year after that. But I don't know that his leash. I don't know that Micky Loomis's leash is all that long at this point. So that's a situation that I'm monitoring right now. Now the big questions outside of that, now that we've gotten to the Micky Loomis of it all, the other two big storylines here, and I want you to follow this closely. We just got a new destination possibility for Aaron Rodgers. Now, we'll see how active the Saints are in this. I've not really heard any whispers about Aaron Rodgers so far with the Saints. I would imagine those will materialize as we go on, as Aaron continues to just hold the Steelers captive as he is wont to do. He loves nothing more than garnering all of the attention and holding a team over the barrel in ways that are demeaning and humiliating to the incumbent organization there. And this is just, he's in heaven right now. Absolute heaven. While he's just, fucking around, not really actually deciding what he wants to do. He probably already knows he's going to come back. He just wants to milk this moment for all it's worth because he's an attention whore. Now he has a potential new suitor here with the New Orleans Saints. And in addition to that, now let's just all kind of, assume we are in a universe where Aaron Rodgers ultimately signs with the New Orleans Saints. So we're just going to assume that he signs with the New Orleans Saints. Now, not saying that this will happen, but for the sake of the scenario I'm about to lay out to you, I want Aaron Rodgers with the New Orleans Saints, okay? There have been strong whispers at 9 that, well, first off, there's been strong whispers that Shedeur Sanders is going to drop the Giants, the Browns, likely seeming like they're going to pass on him up top. Any of the other QB needy teams seeming like they're going to pass on him up top. There are strong whispers at 9 of Shedeur Sanders to the Saints. And now, obviously, that's a lot of whispers that we're talking about right now. And there's a real chance that Shedeur Sanders drops all the way to like the Steelers, or he drops all the way out of the first round entirely, in which case he's in no man's land waiting to get drafted. That is all to say, though, if we get a Shedeur Sanders and Aaron Rodgers QB room, with Shedeur obviously wanting to start, God forbid Aaron Rodgers continues to look bad like he did at times last year, boy, oh boy, the quotes that are going to be coming out of New Orleans are just going to be, they're going to be real obnoxious for Saints fans, and real fun for sickos like me that love to see a little bit of drama. And even more so if Shedeur Sanders were to take Aaron Rodgers' starting job, boy, that would be sweet. I can't even lie to you, boy, that would be a sweet, sweet situation. So that's what I'm looking at here with the Saints right now. If this were Jerry Jones, I'm telling you right now, they're taking Shedeur, they're taking what's his face, Aaron Rodgers, and that they're just gonna roll with that. If this were Jerry Jones, the marketing man like that, you kidding me? The amount of eyes that would be on that organization, especially drafting Dion's kid, sensational. Would be absolutely sensational. So just something to keep an eye on. I don't know if that'll actually come to fruition for the Saints. I still think the Steelers should be the leader in the clubhouse as far as signing Aaron Rodgers. It's actually a better situation for him to go into with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, objectively, better situation for him to go into. Unless he really believes in Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator and offensive mind, which, hey, can't fault him for that. But just something to watch. Just something to watch. Maybe the Saints can do it, and if they do, they're going to be a very entertaining team, albeit probably not a very good one. With that said, I think that's pretty much it for this episode, folks. I really appreciate you tuning in. Not quite so much of a meandering clusterfuck as it was last week, so I apologize for that. I can't say it's not going to happen again because I'm going to get busy again, and it's likely going to happen again at some point, but we apologize. By we, I mean just me. It's not me and Smeagol coming along here. It's just me. It's just me. Shout out Lord of the Rings. But yeah, with that said, thank you all so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. We do this thing once a week during the off season, twice a week during football seasons, every Tuesday. Every Tuesday we are coming out right now. And loving every minute of it. Loving every minute of it, what that we do. Go ahead, subscribe wherever you listen to this. No matter the platform, just subscribe, share it with a friend. Help me grow this thing a little bit. If you want to get in contact with me, shoot me a DM on Twitter. Probably the best way to do it. You can also use the email unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. Just take your pick. They're both down in the description. And you just keep moving from there. That's all you got to do. Just keep moving. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. And with that, thank you all so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I've got no clue what I'm talking about. I'm still trying to find this note. There it is. So, here we go. The state of Georgia is currently seeing record pollen levels, or at the very least in the beginning of the spring, they're seeing record pollen levels. I can't imagine those have abated much over the last several weeks. The main reason for this is because they planted mostly male trees to avoid cleaning up litter dropped by female trees, that being seed pods, fruits, really just anything that people can step on and that, public services have to clean up. It's more cost efficient that way, the joys of government work. The problem with that, however, is now all those male trees they planted, they're litter free for sure, but they are dumping massive, I mean massive quantities of pollen into the air and dumping more by the year as the trees grow bigger. So this is a problem. Trees can be very old, man, and trees are going to get very old. I would imagine those trees planted in Georgia are going to last for a long, long time still. And they're going to keep putting out more and more and more pollen as it goes along. So, good luck, Georgia. I shudder to think about that happening in my state, especially as my pollen allergies have not been great over the last couple of years. I digress on that front, though. I'm going to go get this thing edited and get it up in time for you this time. Sorry about last week. It is what it is. It is what it is. Outside of that, though, I will see you all on next Tuesday, and we'll talk about some stuff, probably a lot of football. See you then. Deuces.